poor girl in a wheelchair made a wish at the fountain. "I wish I could walk again." A young billionaire heard everything and does something unbelievable. The park was almost empty that late afternoon. The last few children ran around the playground equipment while their parents chatted on the benches, enjoying the last rays of sun. The gentle wind swayed the leaves on the trees, creating shadows that danced on the stone ground. Adrian walked slowly, his hands in the pockets of his grey suit. He was in no hurry. In fact, he had nowhere to go. Just another day like all the others, another aimless walk after hours locked in the office. At 42, he had everything money could buy, but he always felt like something was missing. That's when he saw the girl. She was sitting alone near the fountain in a small, worn-out wheelchair. Blonde hair fell in curls over her shoulders, framing an angelic face. She held a coin in the palm of her hand, looking at the water gushing from the fountain with an expression far too serious for someone so small. Adrian stopped. Something about that scene touched him in a way he couldn't explain. The girl closed her eyes and brought the coin close to her chest. Her lips moved in a whisper so low it was almost missed. "I wish I could walk again." The words hit Adrian like a punch to the gut. He felt his chest tighten. The girl opened her light blue eyes and tossed the coin into the fountain, watching the ripples form on the surface. Adrian looked around, searching for her parents. He didn't see anyone nearby paying attention to the girl. He hesitated for a moment, then slowly approached. "May I sit here?" he asked, pointing to the bench next to the fountain. The girl looked up at him. Adrian noticed her eyes were a deep blue, like the sky at the end of the day. She nodded with a small, shy smile. "Did you make a wish?" Adrian asked, sitting down. "I did." She swung her skinny little legs in the chair. "Mommy says wishes don't always come true, but I believe they do." Adrian felt a lump in his throat. Her voice was sweet, full of hope, so different from the resignation he saw in the mirror every day. "And what was your wish?" The girl studied him for a moment, as if deciding if she could trust him. "I want to walk again," she said simply. "I used to run all over the park, now I can only watch." Adrian leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His heart raced. There was something about this child that made him want to help, even without knowing her. "What's your name?" "Maya." "And you?" "Adrian." He paused, thinking about his next words. "Maya, have you ever seen a doctor? Someone who understands?" He gestured vaguely towards her legs. "Yes." "The doctor said it's difficult." Maya shrugged. "Mommy gets sad when she talks about it, so I don't ask anymore." Adrian felt a pang in his chest. He imagined a single mother trying to cope with the situation, likely without enough resources to seek the best options. "Maya, there are very good doctors, people who studied just to help children like you." He spoke slowly, choosing his words. "Maybe I could try to help, talk to those doctors, see what they think." Maya's eyes lit up for the first time. She sat up straighter in her chair. "Really? You would do that? I would—" Adrian was surprised by the certainty in his own voice. He had no idea what he was committing to, but something inside him knew it was right. Maya looked at him with a mature expression, as if weighing his words. "You need to talk to my mom," she said with the seriousness of someone much older. "She's the one who decides these things." Before Adrian could answer, he heard hurried footsteps approaching. A blonde woman was running toward them, her face a mix of relief and worry. "Maya!" she called out. "I told you not to leave the bench." The woman was young, probably in her early 30s, blonde hair tied in a simple ponytail, blue eyes just like her daughter's, but tired. Her clothes were clean, but clearly worn. Still, there was a natural beauty about her that was striking. "Mommy, this is Adrian," Maya said, pointing to him. "He wants to help me walk again." The woman stopped abruptly, her gaze shifting from Maya to Adrian. He stood up, extending his hand. "Adrian Walsh." He introduced himself. She hesitated before shaking his hand. Adrian noticed it was rough, from someone who worked hard. Rachel Turner, she said, her voice cautious. What did my daughter mean by that? Adrian looked at Maya, who was watching the conversation intently, then back at Rachel. She told me about her situation. I'd like to help, if you'll allow it. I know some specialists who might be able to do an evaluation. Rachel crossed her arms, her body tensing. Adrian realized she had put up an invisible barrier between them. We don't need charity. She said, her chin held high. It's not charity, Adrian said slowly. It's... He paused, searching for the right words. I just want to help. Maya is a special girl. Mommy, Maya tugged on Rachel's sleeve. He's nice. He was talking to me about the doctors. Rachel looked at her daughter, then at Adrian. There was a battle happening behind those blue eyes. He could see suspicion fighting with something that looked like hope. I don't know you, she said finally. Why would you do this for people you don't even know? It was a fair question. Adrian didn't have a simple answer. He couldn't explain why this girl had touched something so deep within him. He couldn't say why, for the first time in years, he felt the urge to do something that truly mattered. Because she wished to walk again. He said simply, and I think all children deserve to have their wishes come true. Rachel was silent, studying his face. Maya held her mother's hand, looking between the two adults. Mommy, can I try? She asked softly. Adrian saw the exact moment Rachel softened. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, and he realized he had been holding his breath. Rachel began, then stopped. I don't know. How about this? Adrian suggested. Can I stop by your place tomorrow? We can talk calmly. You can ask me all the questions you want, then you can decide if you want to accept my help or not. Rachel exchanged glances with Maya, who nodded vigorously. Okay, she said finally, but just to talk. Adrian agreed. Rachel took a crumpled piece of paper from her purse and wrote down the address. When she handed it to Adrian, he noticed her hands were trembling slightly. 247 Maple Street, apartment 3B. I'll be there tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon, if you don't mind. Maya clapped her hands, a huge smile lighting up her face. Everything's going to be okay, Mommy. I know it is. Adrian put the paper in his pocket, feeling something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Purpose. For the first time in years, he had something important to do the next day. As Rachel pushed Maya's wheelchair toward the park exit, the girl turned and waved to him. Bye, Adrian. See you tomorrow. He waved back, standing still until they disappeared around the corner. Maya's words still echoed in his mind. I wish I could walk again. 5 simple words that had changed something inside him. Adrian looked at the fountain, where other people were now tossing coins and making their own wishes. He wondered how many of them would come true, how many would remain just dreams in the water. But Maya's wish would be different. He would make sure of it. Walking home, Adrian was already thinking about the phone calls he would make that night. He knew the best neurosurgeons and orthopedists in the country. Someone had to know how to help a little 5-year-old girl make her dream come true. Behind him, the fountain continued to gush, carrying away the wishes of other visitors. But one of them had found someone who could make it a reality. Rachel was washing the breakfast dishes when she heard a knock on the door. She glanced at the clock on the kitchen wall. 2:50 in the afternoon, 10 minutes earlier than planned. Maya, someone's at the door. She called out. It's Adrian, Maya shouted excitedly from her room. I knew he would come. Rachel dried her hands on her apron, her heart racing. She had spent the whole night wondering if she had done the right thing. She didn't know this man. Why would he care about helping 2 strangers? When she opened the door, Adrian was standing in the building's narrow hallway, holding a small bouquet of yellow flowers. Good afternoon, Rachel, he said, handing her the flowers. For both of you, Rachel accepted the flowers when surprised. No one had given her flowers in a long time. Thank you. Please come in. Adrian stepped into the small apartment. Rachel felt a moment of shame seeing the place through his eyes. The living room had a faded sofa, a scratched coffee table, and an old television. The walls needed painting, but everything was clean and organized. "Adrian," Maya appeared in her wheelchair, her eyes shining. "You really came." "Of course I did." He knelt to her level. "I promised I would, didn't I?" "Mummy thought you wouldn't show up," Maya whispered, loud enough for Rachel to hear. "Maya." Rachel felt her face flush. Adrian laughed, straightening up. "I understand your mum's concern, but when I make a promise, I keep it." Rachel offered coffee, but Adrian politely declined. He sat on the sofa, and Maya positioned her chair in front of him. "So," Rachel said, still standing, arms crossed, "what exactly do you have in mind?" Adrian took a deep breath. He had rehearsed this conversation all morning. "Last night I called a few medical colleagues. One of them is Dr. Harrison, a specialist in spinal cord injuries. He agreed to examine Maya today, if you're willing." Rachel blinked in surprise. "Today? But, Mummy, can I go? Please." Maya clasped her little hands together. "I don't know, it's so sudden." Rachel looked from Maya to Adrian. "And the costs?" "Don't worry about that," Adrian said softly. "We just want to see what's possible." Rachel sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands trembling slightly. Part of her wanted to run to protect Maya from another disappointment. How many doctors had already said there wasn't much that could be done? "What if—" she started, then paused. "What if it doesn't work?" Adrian finished. She nodded. "Then at least we'll know we tried everything." Maya took her mother's hand. "Mommy, I want to try, please." Rachel looked into those blue eyes full of hope and felt her chest tighten. How could she deny this to her daughter? "Okay," she said softly. "We'll try." An hour later, they were in Dr. Harrison's office. Rachel had never been in such an elegant place. The reception area had leather armchairs, expensive paintings on the walls, and even a small fountain in the corner. The nurse, a blonde lady with kind eyes, smiled when she saw them arrive. "You must be Maya's family. The doctor is waiting for you." Dr. Harrison was a man with graying hair and kind, very clear eyes. He greeted Maya first, kneeling to her wheelchair's level. "So you're the brave little girl Adrian told me about?" Maya smiled shyly. "I really want to walk again, doctor. Let's see what we can do for you." The examination lasted almost an hour. The doctor asked questions about the accident, tested the reflexes Maya still had, and studied the old x-rays Rachel had brought in a battered folder. "I can feel it when you touch here." Maya pointed to her thigh. "But I can't feel anything down here." "That's normal, Maya." Dr. Harrison made notes in her file. "You're being very brave." Rachel and Adrian sat side by side, watching the doctor's every move. Rachel noticed that Adrian was tense, his hands clenched. He seemed more nervous than she was. Finally, Dr. Harrison finished the exam and helped Maya get dressed. He sat behind his desk, looking at the three of them. "I'll be direct with you," he said, taking off his glasses. "The injury is serious, but it's not complete. That means there are still nerves functioning." Rachel held her breath. "There is a real chance for Maya to regain the ability to walk. But it would be a long treatment, at least a year, and quite painful. Many physical therapy sessions, possibly a small surgery to relieve pressure on the nerves." Adrian leaned forward, his heart racing. "What kind of chances are we talking about, doctor? With the right treatment and her age in our favor, I'd say a 60% chance she'll walk without assistance. 80% chance she'll be able to walk with some kind of support." Rachel felt tears welling up. 60% was more hope than she had had in 2 years. "And the pain?" Adrian asked, looking at Maya. "Is it too much for a child?" Dr. Harrison turned to Maya, who had been listening to everything intently. "Maya, I'm not going to lie to you. It will hurt sometimes. You'll get very tired and might want to give up. Do you think you can be brave even then?" Maya thought for a moment, then nodded with determination. I want to walk again. I'll endure the pain if I have to. The doctor smiled, impressed by her maturity. Then let's start next week. I'll prepare a treatment plan and schedule the first session. On the way home, Maya fell asleep in the back seat of Adrian's car. Rachel looked out the window, trying to process everything that had happened. A day ago, it was just her and Maya, without hope. Now, why are you doing this? She asked softly, without looking at Adrian. Adrian kept his eyes on the road, driving slowly so as not to wake Maya. I can't really explain it. When I heard her wish yesterday, he paused, searching for the words. I felt like I had to help. And what if it doesn't work? Rachel's voice trembled. What if she suffers for nothing? Adrian parked in front of their building and turned to Rachel. He saw tears in her blue eyes. Then at least she'll know she tried. And you'll know you did everything you could for your daughter. Rachel stared at him for a moment. There was sincerity in his face, a kindness she hadn't expected to find. Without thinking, she reached out and took his hand. Adrian felt a shiver run up his arm as he felt her small, calloused fingers. Thank you, she said, her voice choked with emotion. I don't know how I'll ever thank you for this. Adrian looked at their joined hands. He felt something stir in his chest, an emotion he hadn't felt in years. Purpose, connection. You don't have to thank me, he said softly. Seeing Maya walk will be thanks enough. But as he spoke, Adrian felt a fear growing inside him. What if the treatment didn't work? What if he had given this family too much hope? What if he disappointed the little girl who had touched his heart? He took a card from his pocket and handed it to Rachel. The first session is Thursday at 2. This is my personal number. If you need anything at all, call me. Rachel took the card, her fingers brushing against his for an extra instant. Adrian, she began but didn't know how to continue. It's going to work out, he said, more to convince himself than her. It has to. He helped Maya wake up and get out of the car. The girl was still sleepy, but she smiled when she saw where they were. Are we home already? Yes, sweetie. Rachel kissed her daughter's forehead. And on Thursday, we're going to start the treatment. Maya clapped her hands, her eyes shining again. It's all going to be okay, right, Mommy? Yes, my love. As he watched the two of them enter the building, Adrian felt the weight of the responsibility he had taken on. He had promised to help a little girl achieve her biggest dream. Now all he could do was hope he hadn't promised too much. The physical therapy clinic was on the other side of the city, in a modern building with huge windows and white walls. Rachel arrived 15 minutes early, pushing Maya's wheelchair up the entrance ramp. Adrian was already waiting in the reception area. How are you two, he asked, getting up from his chair. Anxious, Rachel admitted. Maya barely slept last night. Maya looked around with curiosity. The waiting room had colorful toys in a corner, comfortable chairs, and smelled of cleaning products mixed with something that smelled like rubber. Maya Turner. A blonde woman with short hair and light blue eyes appeared at the door. She was wearing athletic clothes and had a warm smile. I'm Sandra, your physical therapist. Maya waved shyly. Hello, and you must be the parents. Come on in. Let's see our room. Rachel was about to correct her, to say that Adrian wasn't Maya's father, but something made her keep quiet. The lie seemed simpler at that moment. The therapy room was large, with mats on the floor, parallel bars, exercise balls, and various pieces of equipment Maya didn't recognize. There were mirrors on one entire wall and soft music playing in the background. So, Maya? Sandra knelt to her level. Ready to get started? Maya nodded, but Rachel noticed her little hands were trembling slightly. Is it going to hurt? She asked softly. A little bit sometimes. Sandra was honest. But we'll go slow, and you let me know if it's too uncomfortable, okay? The first part was easy. Sandra helped Maya lie down on a padded table and started with gentle stretches. She lifted the girl's legs, bent her knees, and moved her ankles. Can you feel this, Maya? Just a little bit up here. Maya pointed to her thighs. Down here, I don't feel anything. Rachel sat in a chair on the side, watching every movement. Adrian stood a little way off, not quite sure where to position himself. He wanted to help, but he didn't know how. Now we're going to try some strengthening exercises, Sandra explained. I'm going to help your legs move, even if you can't feel everything. It's to train the muscles and the nerves. She placed her hands under Maya's knees and began to make movements as if she were pedaling a bicycle. At first, Maya smiled, finding it funny, but after a few minutes, her face started to turn red with effort. Is it tiring? Sandra asked. A little. Maya panted, but I can keep going. The hardest part came when Sandra brought out a machine with small electrodes. This will send small electrical shocks to your muscles. It's not dangerous, but it might be uncomfortable. Maya looked at Rachel, who came closer and held her hand. You can do this, sweetie. Mommy's here. Sandra attached the electrodes to Maya's legs and turned on the machine. The girl jumped when she felt the first stimulations. Is it too bad? Rachel asked, worried. It's weird. Maya made a face, like someone is pinching me from the inside. They continued for another 15 minutes. Maya tried to keep a brave smile, but tears started to stream down her face. She didn't complain, just let the tears fall silently. Adrian felt his chest tighten watching this. He approached the table. Maya, you're being so brave, he said softly. I don't want to give up. She sniffled. But I can't feel it right. It's like my legs aren't mine. I know, sweetie. Sandra turned off the machine. That's normal. Slowly, your spinal cord will learn to communicate with your legs again. Is it really going to work? Maya asked, wiping her eyes. With a warrior like you, I'm sure it will. Rachel felt a lump in her throat. Seeing her daughter, so small, going through this was painful. But at the same time, she felt proud of her courage. Adrian remained quiet throughout the exercise, just observing. He was learning that supporting didn't mean interfering. Maya needed space to face this her own way. When the session was over, Maya was exhausted. Sandra helped her sit in her wheelchair. Maya, I want to tell you something. The therapist knelt to her level. In 15 years of doing this work, I have rarely seen a child as determined as you. That grit you have is what's going to make you walk again. Rachel and Adrian exchanged glances. Sandra's words sounded like a promise. Really? Maya asked, her eyes shining. Really? Sandra smiled. But the road ahead is still long. 3 sessions a week, lots of exercises at home. Are you ready for that? We are, Rachel said without hesitation. And I'll be here whenever you need me, Adrian added. On the way out, Maya was sleepy but happy. Mummy, I did everything she asked. You sure did, my love. I'm so proud of you. Adrian carried Maya in his arms to the car, as she was too tired to transfer to the seat herself. When he placed her in the seat, she held onto his arm. Adrian, thank you for being here with me. He felt a tightness in his chest. No one had said something so simple and meaningful to him in a very long time. I always will be, Maya, I promise. On the way home, Rachel looked in the rearview mirror, watching Maya dozing in the back seat. That was harder than I imagined. She admitted to Adrian. For her or for you? He asked gently. For both of us. Rachel sighed. Seeing her cry and not being able to do anything, it's devastating. But did you see how strong she was? She didn't give up for a second. She gets that from her father, Rachel said without thinking, then fell silent. Adrian didn't ask about Maya's father. He sensed it was a sensitive topic and respected Rachel's silence. When they got home, Maya woke up more cheerful. When's the next session? Monday, Rachel said, helping her out of the car. Sandra said that next time I might feel something different, Maya told Adrian. Some sign that it's working. Adrian knelt to her level. And if that happens, we'll celebrate. If it doesn't, we'll keep trying. Deal. Deal. Maya smiled. holding out her little hand to seal the agreement. As he watched Rachel push Maya into the building, Adrian felt a mix of hope and worry. The first session had been a test of endurance for all of them, but Maya had passed, and that gave him the courage to believe they could face whatever came next. The next session would bring new challenges. Perhaps it would also bring the first sign that the miracle was starting to happen. Adrian got into his car, determined to be there to witness either scenario. It was Maya's fourth session, 2 weeks after the first. The routine was already settling in. Adrian would pick them both up. They would go to the clinic together, watch every exercise bow, and come home in the late afternoon. Maya was in the therapy room with Sandra, working on the table. The electrodes were attached to her legs, and she grimaced with each electrical stimulation, but she no longer complained. She was getting stronger, more used to the discomfort. Rachel and Adrian watched from the glass window in the hallway. The clinic had this set up so parents could watch without interfering with the therapist's work. "She's doing so well," Rachel murmured, her arms crossed. Adrian nodded but noticed something different in her tone today. Since they arrived, Rachel had seemed more tense, more distant. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Rachel didn't answer right away. She continued watching Maya through the glass. The girl was trying to move her toes while Sandra held her ankles. "Some days are harder," she said finally. "The session? No." Rachel shook her head, seeing her fight so hard to achieve something that she used to do naturally. Adrian watched her closely. There were tears forming in Rachel's blue eyes. "Do you want to talk about it?" Rachel looked at him, then down the empty hallway. Other parents were in different rooms, each fighting their own battles. "Sometimes I wonder," she began, then paused. "Wonder what?" Rachel took a deep breath, as if preparing to dive into deep waters. "How different everything would be if I hadn't let go of her hand." Adrian frowned, not understanding. "We were playing on the sidewalk." Rachel continued, her voice growing quieter. "It was a Saturday morning, right after breakfast. Maya had a new doll I had bought for her. She was so happy, jumping from side to side." She paused, the words seeming to get stuck in her throat. "You don't have to," Adrian started. "I do," Rachel interrupted him. "It's been 2 years since I've talked about this with anyone." Maya laughed inside the room, and the sound made Rachel smile for an instant before sadness returned. She wanted to show the neighbor how the doll talked. "You know how kids are, right? Everything is a huge novelty." Rachel wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I was distracted, looking at my phone. I had to work even on the weekend back then." Adrian felt his stomach clench, guessing where the story was going. Maya let go of my hand and ran into the street. Rachel's voice trembled. "Just to cross to Mrs. Margaret's house. It was a quiet street, you know. Cars never drove by at that time of morning." "Rachel." Adrian tried, but she continued. "But that day one did." The tears began to fall. "A car out of control. The driver had felt ill, lost control. It hit Maya right in the middle of the street." Rachel covered her face with her hands. Adrian felt a pain in his chest he hadn't expected. "It was the worst day of my life," she sobbed softly. "Seeing my daughter lying on the asphalt, not moving. I thought she was dead." Adrian wanted to say something, but he couldn't find the words. He just stood there beside her, respecting her pain. "The doctors at the hospital said she was lucky to have survived," Rachel continued, the tears now streaming freely. "But I couldn't feel lucky. All I could think was that if I had held her hand tighter, if I hadn't looked at that damn phone." "Rachel, no," Adrian said softly. "You can't blame yourself for that." "Why not?" She faced him, her eyes red. "I was her mother. It was my responsibility to protect her, and I failed." "You didn't fail. It was an accident." "If I had held on tighter," Rachel repeated, her voice breaking. "She would have gotten hurt anyway," Adrian said firmly. "Or maybe you would have gotten hurt with her. It wasn't your fault, Rachel." Rachel shook her head, not believing him. "You don't understand. For 2 years, I've been replaying that moment, what I could have done differently. If I had paid attention, if I had held on tighter, if... Adrian interrupted gently. You can spend your whole life thinking about the way it sounds, but that won't change what happened. Rachel looked at him through her tears. Maya almost died because of me. Maya survived because of you, Adrian retorted. Do you think she got this far on her own? Who took care of her in the hospital? Who did physical therapy with her at home? Who worked double shifts to pay the medical bills? Rachel sniffled but didn't answer. You are the reason she is here today, fighting to walk again. Adrian continued. You are her strength, Rachel, not her fault. But I should have... You should have what? Guessed the future. Adrian turned to face her completely. Rachel, you are an incredible mother. Maya knows it. I know it. Everyone in this clinic knows it. Rachel began to cry harder. 2 years of repressed guilt finally coming out. Adrian hesitated for a moment, then placed a hand on her shoulder. It's not your fault, he repeated softly. It's not your fault. They stood like that for a few minutes, Rachel crying in the hallway while Adrian offered his silent presence. He didn't try to stop her or console her with empty words. He just stood there, letting her vent. Inside the room, Maya continued to work with Sandra, unaware of the drama unfolding outside. Thank you, Rachel said finally, wiping her eyes. For letting me talk about it, and for being here. Always, Adrian replied simply. It's strange. Rachel gave a humorless laugh. You barely know us, and you're here, listening to my problems. Maybe it's easier to talk to an outsider, Adrian suggested. Someone who won't judge you. Rachel studied him for a moment. Do you have children? No. Adrian shook his head. I never have. Then you can't fully understand. And she said, but there was no accusation in her voice. The guilt a mother carries when something happens to her child it's unbearable sometimes. I may not fully understand, Adrian admitted, but I can see how much you love Maya, and I can assure you she doesn't blame you for anything. At that moment, Sandra opened the door to the room. How are you two out here? She asked, noticing Rachel's red eyes. We're fine, Rachel said, quickly composing herself. How is she? Sandra smiled. Maya had a small reaction today. Nothing major, but she managed to move her big toe when I asked, just for a second, but it was a voluntary movement. Rachel and Adrian looked at each other, surprised. Really? Rachel asked, sadness giving way to hope. Really? Next session, we'll work more on that. It could be the first real sign that the nerves are reconnecting. Rachel felt her heart race. After 2 weeks of painful exercises and invisible results, there was finally something concrete. Can I talk to her? She asked. Of course, we're just finishing up. As Rachel went into the room to hug Maya and celebrate the small victory, Adrian stayed in the hallway, thinking about the conversation they'd had. Rachel had been carrying a guilt that wasn't hers for 2 years, but maybe, by seeing Maya improve little by little, she could forgive herself. The big toe that moved for a second was more than a sign of physical recovery. It was the beginning of a healing that went far beyond the spinal cord. 3 weeks had passed since Maya's first session. The routine was established. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the clinic, always at the same time. Adrian would pick up Rachel and Maya at 2 in the afternoon, take them to physical therapy, wait through the entire appointment, and bring them back in the late afternoon. Rachel no longer questioned why he did it. Adrian was simply there, as if he had always been a part of their lives, and Maya had grown accustomed to his presence in a way that touched Rachel's heart. The girl would ask about him on the off days from therapy, and when she woke up, she always wanted to know if Adrian would be picking them up that day. That Wednesday morning, Maya had woken up more excited than usual, talking about a dream where she was running through the park with Adrian and Rachel. I dreamed we had a picnic on the grass and I ran to get the ball. She recounted in the car, her eyes shining. It felt so real. I could feel my feet on the grass, feel the wind on my face when I ran. It was the best feeling in the world. Rachel exchanged a look with Adrian in the rearview mirror. They had learned not to comment too much on Maya's dreams. The therapist, Sandra, had explained it was normal, that the girl's mind was processing the possibility of walking again. But sometimes it hurt to hear those dreams, so vivid, so full of hope. And at the end of the dream, Maya continued, you two were applauding me, like I had won a very important race. Adrian felt a tightness in his chest. In recent weeks, he had started appearing in Maya's dreams more often. It made him feel like part of the family, but it also made him afraid. What if they couldn't help her? What if her dreams were just that, dreams? They arrived at the clinic right on time. Adrian already knew the way by heart, knew where to park, and greeted the receptionist by name. Sandra welcomed them with her usual smile, but Rachel noticed something different in her expression. There was an anticipation there, an energy that wasn't present in the other sessions. How are you today? Sandra asked, bending down to Maya's level. Good, Rachel replied. Maya woke up saying it was going to be a special day. Sandra smiled, exchanging a quick glance with the two nurses passing in the hallway. Sometimes kids know things before we do. Let's see how she responds to the exercises today. In the therapy room, Maya went straight to the table as she always did. She knew the routine by heart. She knew where the different pieces of equipment were, the name of each exercise, and even helped Sandra organize the electrodes. It was impressive how she had adapted to an environment that initially scared her. Sandra began with the usual stretches, moving Maya's legs carefully. Then she moved on to joint mobilizations, working each joint individually. Everything was the same as the other sessions, but Rachel noticed that Sandra was paying closer attention to Maya's reactions, watching her face more intensely. Rachel and Adrian watched from their chairs, one on each side of the table. In recent weeks, they had developed a silent and efficient dynamic. Rachel held Maya's hand when the exercises became more intense, whispering words of encouragement. Adrian would talk quietly to her about funny things to distract her from the pain, stories from his work, silly jokes that made Maya laugh, descriptions of beautiful places he knew. Today we're going to try something a little different, Sandra announced, taking a device they didn't recognize from a drawer. It's a more precise stimulator. It will send very targeted electrical impulses to specific points on the spinal cord. The device was larger than the usual one, with more controls and a digital screen showing colorful waves. Maya looked at it with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Is it going to hurt more? She asked, her voice getting slightly higher. Maybe a little. Sandra was honest as always, but it might bring better results too. Dr. Harrison specifically asked us to test it today. Are you up for trying? Maya looked at Rachel, then at Adrian. In their eyes, she saw encouragement and trust. She took a deep breath, as she had learned to do when she was nervous. I'm up for it. I want to try. Sandra began to place new electrodes on Maya's legs in slightly different positions than in previous sessions. She explained that she was targeting regions of the spinal cord that might just be dormant, not damaged. The hope, she said, was to awaken these areas with more precise stimuli. These points, she explained, showing where she was placing each electrode, correspond to the nerves that control sensation and movement in your legs. It's like we're ringing their doorbell trying to get them to answer. Maya laughed at the comparison. Do nerves have doors? In a way, yes. Sandra smiled, finishing with the last electrode. And today we're going to knock on that door a little harder. I'm going to start very slowly. Sandra turned on the machine, which emitted a soft hum. Let me know if you feel anything different. The first impulses made Maya's face tense up, but she didn't complain. She was used to the discomfort of the stimulations. Sandra gradually increased the intensity, observing the girl's reactions and noting everything on a chart. How is it? She asked after a few minutes. Weird, Maya replied, looking at her legs as if they were foreign objects. But it doesn't hurt much. It's more like someone is poking me from the inside. Sandra nodded, making more notes. She adjusted some controls on the machine, changing the frequency of the impulses. The waves on the digital screen changed color, becoming faster. Maya remained lying down, looking at the ceiling, trying to be brave as always. Rachel held her little hand, whispering words of encouragement. Adrian watched in silence, hoping internally for something to happen. In the past few weeks, progress had been minimal. The big toe that moved occasionally, some involuntary muscle contractions when Sandra performed certain movements. Nothing that indicated a real recovery, nothing that brought the hope that Maya would actually walk again. Sandra increased the intensity a little more. Maya blinked several times in a row, reacting to the stronger stimulus. "Now I want you to try to concentrate on your legs, Maya," Sandra said calmly, lowering her voice slightly. "Imagine you're sending them a message. It can be anything. Move your toes, feel an itch, anything. Don't force it. Just let your mind talk to your legs." Maya closed her eyes, concentrating intensely. Her forehead wrinkled with effort, and she breathed slowly, trying to connect with parts of her body she hadn't felt in 2 years. Rachel and Adrian held their breath without realizing, the silence in the room becoming almost palpable. A minute passed, 2 minutes. Maya remained focused, but nothing was happening visually. Sandra kept the machine on, carefully watching the numbers on the screen and the subtle reactions on the girl's face. "It's not working," Maya said, discouraged, opening her eyes. "I can't feel anything different. It's like my legs aren't even there." "It's okay, sweetie." Rachel squeezed her hand a little tighter. "Sometimes these things take time." "You've been so brave so far." Adrian leaned forward in his chair. "Remember what we talked about yesterday, Maya? About not giving up, even when it seems hard?" Maya nodded, but her eyes were starting to well up with frustration. Sandra adjusted the controls one more time, completely changing the settings. The screen showed different waves, slower but more intense. "Let's try a little more with a different approach," she said patiently. "This time, instead of trying to move, just pay attention to whether you feel anything different. It doesn't have to be movement. It could be warmth, cold, tingling, any sensation." Maya nodded, closing her eyes again. This time, instead of frowning with effort, she tried to stay completely relaxed. Sandra gradually increased the intensity of the new protocol. The room fell silent again, only the soft hum of the machine filling the space. Adrian watched the girl's face, hoping to see any sign of change. Rachel bit her lower lip, anxious, her own tears forming from hoping so hard for something to happen. 5 minutes passed. Maya remained quiet, breathing slowly. Sandra continued to adjust the controls, trying different combinations of frequency and intensity. Suddenly, Maya's eyes flew wide open, really wide, as if she had seen something unbelievable. "Wait," she said, her voice changing completely, becoming higher with surprise. "Wait, there's something—" "What is it, sweetie?" Rachel asked quickly, leaning over the table. Maya was very still for a moment, as if listening to something only she could hear, paying attention to sensations coming from far away. Her face was tense with concentration, but it was a different kind of tension. It was pure anticipation. Then her eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't tears of pain or frustration. They were tears of something she hadn't felt in 2 long years. "Mommy," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Mommy, I felt an itch." Rachel felt her heart stop for a second, then pound like never before. "Where, sweetie? Where did you feel it?" "In my foot." Maya was almost shouting with excitement, trying to sit up on the table. "My left foot, a really nice, real itch." Sandra immediately paused the machine and approached the table, her eyes shining with professional and personal emotion. "Maya, are you absolutely sure what you felt?" she asked, but a smile was already forming on her face. I am. Maya was beaming, tears of joy streaming down her face. I really felt it. It was right here. She pointed exactly to the side of her left foot, like when you stay in the same position for too long and then it itches. Her good itch, one that makes you want to scratch. Rachel began to cry uncontrollably, her hands shaking with emotion. Adrian felt his own eyes well up, a wave of relief and joy washing over him. It was the first real, concrete, tangible sign that Maya's nerves were responding. This is wonderful, Maya, Sandra said, making quick notes in the chart, her hands trembling a little with excitement. This is exactly the kind of sensation we were hoping for. It means your nerves are learning to communicate with your brain again. Maya started to laugh and cry at the same time, a sound of pure joy that filled the room. So it's going to work. I'm really going to walk? For real? Sandra bent down to her level, holding her little hands. I can't promise anything yet, sweetie, but what you just felt is a very, very good sign. It's like your nerves have woken up from a long sleep and are saying, hi back. Rachel got up from her chair and hugged Maya, crying with her, whispering words of pride and love. Adrian stood still for a moment, watching this sacred moment, feeling an emotion he couldn't name. It was pure happiness, mixed with deep relief and renewed hope. Adrian! Maya called over her mother's shoulder, reaching an arm out to him. Did you hear? I felt my foot talked to me. Adrian stood up and came closer, being included in the family hug. He felt his heart clench with emotion as he received that spontaneous affection. I heard, warrior, he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. I am so, so proud of you. You are the bravest girl I know. Now I know it's going to work, Maya said, her face lit by the first genuine smile in weeks. My foot woke up. It was just sleeping. Sandra waited for the emotional moment to pass, then approached again. Maya, I'm going to take a few minutes of break for you to process this and rest. But I want to try a few more exercises today, taking advantage of the fact that the nerves are responding well. Can we do that? Yes, Maya replied enthusiastically. I want to try to feel it again. While Maya drank some juice that Sandra brought from the break room, Rachel and Adrian talked quietly in the corner of the room. I can't believe it happened, Rachel whispered, still with tears in her eyes, wiping her face with the back of her hands. After so long with nothing, no hope, she did it. Adrian said, looking at Maya, who was telling Sandra every minute detail of the sensation she had felt. Our warrior did it. Rachel repeated the word, and something in her tone made Adrian look at her. They looked at each other for a moment, and Adrian realized that Rachel had said "are naturally," including him in their family without a second thought. He felt a warmth in his chest he couldn't explain, a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. Ready to continue? Sandra asked, returning with the reconfigured machine. Maya nodded enthusiastically, positioning herself on the table with a completely different energy. I want to try to feel it again. I want to talk to my foot more. The second part of the session was even more emotional. When Sandra turned the machine back onto the setting that had worked, Maya managed to feel the itch 2 more times, once in her right foot, which made her let out a little shriek of joy, and another in her left calf, which left her speechless with surprise. It's like someone is waking up my legs slowly, she explained, radiant. First the left foot, then the right, now the calf. It's like there's a person inside turning on the lights one by one. Sandra took detailed notes of each sensation, recording the intensity of the stimulus needed, the exact location of each episode, and the duration of each feeling. This data would be crucial for planning the next sessions. Maya, what's happening today is a milestone in your treatment, Sandra explained, carefully turning off the machine. I'm going to talk to Dr. Harrison today, and we'll adjust the entire protocol. We'll probably increase the frequency of sessions and try completely new exercises. Does that mean she'll get better faster? Rachel asked, still barely believing what she had witnessed. It means her body is responding much better than we expected. Sandra smiled, organizing the equipment. This opens up several new possibilities, maybe even standing exercises in the coming weeks. When the session ended, Maya was physically exhausted but emotionally on cloud nine. For the first time in weeks, she left the clinic smiling instead of crying, waving to all the nurses and sharing her victory with anyone who would listen. In the car, she couldn't stop talking about the sensations. "It was like my foot was whispering in my ear," she explained, gesturing excitedly, saying softly that it was still there, that it hadn't gone away forever. Rachel laughed, a light and genuine laugh that Adrian hadn't heard in a long time. "And what else did your foot say?" she joked, looking at her daughter in the rearview mirror. "That it misses running," Maya replied, completely serious, "and that soon it will be able to run again, and that it wants to get to know Adrian better by running with him." Adrian felt his heart tighten with emotion at being so naturally included in Maya's future plans. "I would love to run with you, Maya," he said sincerely. "Promise?" "I promise." As he drove, watching mother and daughter chat excitedly in the rearview mirror, Adrian realized that this had been a decisive day, not just for Maya's treatment, but for all of them. The first sign had arrived, and with it, the absolute certainty that nothing would ever be the same. 2 weeks had passed since Maya felt the first itch in her foot. 2 weeks of small but steady progress, of sensations that came and went, of hope growing slowly but surely. The physical therapy protocol had changed completely after that landmark day. Now there were 5 sessions a week instead of 3. Sandra had introduced new exercises, different equipment, more precise stimuli. Maya was responding better than anyone had dared to hope. She could feel parts of her legs more often, had limited control over some muscles, and her reflexes were gradually returning. That Thursday morning, Sandra greeted them with a different expression. There was barely contained emotion in her light blue eyes, and a smile she was trying to hide professionally. "Good morning, warrior," she greeted Maya, as she always did. "Ready for a special session today?" Maya, who was in her wheelchair wearing a pink t-shirt Adrian had bought for her, smiled curiously. "Special how?" "Today we're going to try something you've been asking for weeks." Sandra knelt to her level. "We're going to see if you can stand up." The silence that followed was total. Rachel felt her heart stop for a moment. Adrian leaned forward in his chair in the waiting room. Maya's eyes went wide, barely believing what she had heard. "Really?" she asked, her voice an emotional whisper. "Really? Dr. Harrison reviewed all your progress and authorized the test," Sandra explained. "It will be very slow with a lot of support, but he thinks you're ready." Maya started clapping, her eyes filling with tears of joy. "I'm going to stand up, Mommy, I'm going to stand up." Rachel knelt and hugged her daughter, feeling her own tears coming. Adrian watched the scene, his chest tight with emotion. Over the past 2 months, he had learned to share every victory and every disappointment with this little family. "Let's take it slow," Sandra said gently. "First, we need to do the usual warm-up. Then we'll move to the parallel bars." The session began as always, but there was a different energy in the room. Maya did the stretching exercises with more enthusiasm. Sandra worked with surgical precision, and Rachel and Adrian watched every movement with heightened attention. After 40 minutes of preparation, Sandra announced, "Now it's time." She took Maya to an area of the room they had never used before. There were the parallel bars, 2 padded metal bars, parallel to each other, at the height of an adult's chest. Maya looked at them as if they were the most important object in the world. "How does it work?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly with anxiety. "You're going to hold on to the bars with your hands," Sandra explained, positioning the wheelchair between the bars. "I'll hold you by the waist, and you'll try to use your legs to stand up. You don't have to support your own weight, just try to activate the muscles." Maya nodded, determined. Rachel and Adrian positioned themselves where they could see everything, but without getting in the way. Ready? Sandra asked. Maya took a deep breath and gripped the bars with both hands. Sandra fastened a safety belt around the girl's waist and positioned herself behind her. Now slowly try to press your feet into the floor and imagine you're standing up. Sandra instructed. I'll help you, but I want you to try to feel your legs working. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, concentrating. Then, with a determination that impressed everyone in the room, she began to push. At first, nothing happened. Maya clung to the bars, her face red with effort, but her legs didn't respond. Sandra held her firmly, waiting patiently. Easy does it, warrior, Adrian said softly from the side. No rush. Maya tried again. This time, Rachel could see her legs trembling slightly, as if they were trying to remember how to work. Sandra began to help her stand up slowly, supporting almost all of her weight. And then it happened. Maya straightened up, her legs shaking but supporting part of her own weight. She was standing, truly standing, even with a lot of support. "Mommy," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "Mommy, I'm doing it." Rachel couldn't contain herself. She started to cry openly, bringing her hands to her face. Adrian felt his eyes well up, a deep emotion taking over him. He discreetly wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, trying to maintain his composure. "You're standing, Maya," Sandra said, emotional as well. "You did it." Maya stood for almost 10 seconds, her legs trembling but holding. When Sandra helped her sit back down in the chair, she was radiant. "I did it, I really did it," she repeated, unable to stop smiling. "Can I try again?" she asked immediately. "Of course you can," Sandra laughed. "But let's rest for a few minutes first." While Maya drank some water and rested, one of the nurses approached Sandra. "Can we take a picture of this moment?" she asked quietly. "For her file and, well, it's a historic milestone here at the clinic." Sandra looked at Rachel and Adrian. "What do you think? A picture to mark this moment?" Rachel nodded, still too emotional to speak. Adrian agreed as well. "It would be an honor," he said. "Maya will want to remember this day forever." On the second try, Maya managed to stand for almost 15 seconds. The nurse captured the exact moment. Maya on the parallel bars, her face lit up with joy, Sandra holding her carefully, Rachel and Adrian in the background with expressions of pure pride. "This picture is going in our gallery of successes," the nurse said, showing the image to everyone. "And I'm sure we'll have many more of Maya soon." After the third attempt, Sandra decided that was enough for one day. "We don't want to push it too much," she explained. "But the progress was incredible. Next week, we'll start working on short steps with assistance." On the way home, Maya couldn't stop talking about the experience. "It was like my feet woke up for good," she said, gesturing excitedly. "They were talking to me, saying they remembered how to stand." "And what did it feel like?" Adrian asked, driving slowly to prolong the conversation. It was like flying, but in reverse," Maya tried to explain, "like I was a bird learning to land again." Rachel smiled, watching her daughter in the rearview mirror. "I'm so proud of you, my love." "And I'm proud of myself too," Maya declared, making the two adults laugh. A week later, the day came to try her first steps. Sandra had prepared a different room, with specific equipment for functional training. The floor had thicker mats, there were support bars everywhere, and a suspension system that could help Maya if she lost her balance. "Today, the goal is simple," Sandra explained. "One step, just one." With all the support you need, Maya was visibly nervous. In the past few weeks, she had gained confidence standing, but taking a step seemed like a huge challenge. "What if I fall?" she asked, her voice small. "I'll be here," Sandra assured her. "And the mats are very thick, but we won't let you fall." Adrian approached and knelt in front of Maya's chair. "Remember what we talked about being brave," he said softly. Maya nodded. "That sometimes courage isn't not being afraid, but doing it even when you are afraid." "Exactly," Adrian smiled. "And you've already proven you're the bravest person I know." Maya took a deep breath and nodded, determined. The process was slow and careful. Sandra helped Maya stand at the parallel bars, then moved her to a position where she could try to take a step forward with full support. Now, slowly, try to lift your right foot and place it forward, Sandra instructed. Maya concentrated intensely. She lifted her right foot a few inches off the ground, wobbled for a moment, but managed to keep her balance. "You did it," Rachel exclaimed. "Now place it forward." Sandra encouraged. Maya tried to move her foot forward, but lost her balance. Sandra caught her immediately, but the movement startled Maya. She tried to get a better grip on the bars, but her hands slipped. And she fell. It wasn't a dangerous fall. Sandra supported her, and the mats cushioned the impact, but it was a fall. Maya found herself sitting on the floor, her legs splayed out, looking up with an expression of total despair. "I'll never be able to do it," she burst out, starting to cry. "Never, ever, it's impossible." Rachel rushed over, but it was Adrian who reached Maya's side first. He knelt on the mat and held out his hand to her. "Don't give up," he said firmly, looking directly into her blue eyes. "I'm here with you. Let's do this together." Maya looked at Adrian's outstretched hand, tears streaming down her face. "I can't," she sobbed. "It's too hard." "Yes, you can." Adrian kept his hand extended. "You've already stood up. You've already felt your legs again. A step is just a step." Maya hesitated for a long moment. The room was completely silent, everyone waiting for her decision. Then, slowly, she took Adrian's hand. "Together?" she asked, her voice still trembling. "Together," Adrian confirmed. Sandra helped Maya get up and back to the parallel bars. This time, Adrian stood on her right side, holding her right hand, while she leaned on the bar with her left. "This time, I'll take the step with you," Adrian said, at the same pace. Together. Maya took a deep breath, wiped away her tears, and nodded. "Ready?" Sandra asked. "Ready," Maya replied, her voice firmer. The silence in the room was absolute. Rachel held her breath. Sandra positioned herself to provide support if needed. 3, 2, 1. Adrian counted, and Maya took her first step. It was small, hesitant, supported, but it was a real step. Her right foot lifted off the floor, moved forward, and landed a few inches ahead. The silence held for another second. Then it erupted into subdued applause. Sandra, Rachel, the two nurses watching from the door, all celebrating that historic moment. "I did it," Maya whispered, barely believing it. "I took a step." "You sure did," Adrian said, squeezing her hand. "A perfect step." Maya looked at Adrian, then at Rachel, then at Sandra. Her eyes shone with a mix of pride, gratitude, and determination. "Thank you," she said to Adrian, "for not letting me give up." "Always," Adrian replied. "I will always be here." As Sandra helped Maya sit and rest, the girl was quiet for a while, processing what had happened. "Adrian?" she finally called. "Yes. I want to do something special to thank you," she said, her eyes shining with an idea. "For everything you've done for me and Mommy." Adrian felt his heart clench. "You don't have to thank me for anything, Maya." "Yes, I do," she insisted. "I want to do something very special. Something to show how important you are to us." Rachel came over and kissed her daughter's forehead. "And I'm sure it will be something wonderful." As they left the clinic that day, Maya was already planning her special surprise. She had taken her first step, and now she wanted to return the affection of the person who had helped her get there. The future, for the first time in 2 years, seemed full of infinite possibilities. Rachel's apartment felt especially cozy that Friday afternoon. The golden late-day light streamed through the kitchen window, creating a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Maya was sitting at the small table, surrounded by scattered colored pencils and blank papers. It had been 3 weeks since her first step, and her progress had been steady. She could now take up to 5 consecutive steps with support, and Sandra was talking about starting balance exercises the following week. But that afternoon, Maya had other plans. "Mommy, can you help me pick the colors?" she called from the kitchen. Rachel was in the living room, organizing some work papers on the sofa. Adrian had gone out to handle some office matters, but had promised to be back for dinner. This was how it was now. He was part of their routine, so naturally it felt like he had always been there. "What colors do you want, my love?" Rachel asked, approaching the table. Maya had a paper in front of her but was covering it with her hands so Rachel couldn't see. "It's a surprise," she said, her blue eyes shining with mischief. "But I need the skin-colored pencil and the lightest brown you have." Rachel rummaged through the pencils scattered on the table until she found the shades Maya had requested. "Here they are." She handed them to her daughter. "May I know what you're making?" "Not yet." Maya laughed. "It's a very special surprise." "For a very special person." Rachel smiled, kissed the top of her daughter's head, and returned to the living room. She knew that when Maya decided to make a surprise, it was best to let her work in peace. The girl took her artistic creations very seriously. Maya first picked up the skin-colored pencil and began to draw with her tongue sticking out in concentration. She made a small figure on the left side of the paper, a girl with wavy blonde hair, wearing a simple dress. She drew the figure's legs with special care, making sure they were clearly visible and strong. "There, that's me," she murmured to herself, satisfied. Then she took the lightest brown pencil and began to draw another figure next to the first. This one was taller, with dark hair and a gentle smile. He was wearing a shirt and pants, and Maya paid special attention to the eyes, trying to make them look as kind as Adrian's. The most important part came now: the hands. Maya carefully drew 2 hands touching, the little girl's hand holding the big man's hand firmly. This was the part she considered most important in the whole drawing. "Perfect," she said quietly, observing her work. She then took the red pencil and drew small hearts floating around the 2 figures. Not too many, just enough to show love without cluttering the drawing. Lastly, at the top of the paper, in neat but still childish letters, she slowly wrote, "My best friend." When she finished, Maya held the paper in front of her face and examined it critically. The figures weren't perfect. The man's head was a bit out of proportion, and the girl's feet were too big. But it was made with so much care that it radiated love from every stroke. "Mommy," she called, "I'm done." Rachel returned to the kitchen and stopped when she saw the drawing. She felt her chest tighten with emotion as she immediately recognized the 2 figures. "Maya," she said, her voice choked. "It's beautiful, sweetie. It's me and Adrian," Maya explained proudly. "Look, I drew us holding hands because he always holds my hand when I'm scared, and I wrote that he's my best friend because, well, because it's true." Rachel bent down to her daughter's level, her eyes misty. "He's going to be very moved by this." "You think so?" Maya asked, anxious. "I want him to know how I feel." "I'm sure he will." Rachel kissed her daughter's cheek. "It's the most beautiful gift he could ever receive." Maya carefully folded the drawing and put it under a book to keep it flat until Adrian arrived. 2 hours later, when they heard the key in the lock, Maya nearly jumped out of her wheelchair with excitement. "He's here," she shouted. "Mommy, he's here." Adrian came in carrying a grocery bag and smiled at Maya's excitement. "Good evening, family," he said, as he had grown accustomed to greeting them. "How was your day?" "Adrian," Maya called, gesturing for him to come closer. "I have something very important to give you." "Ah, you do?" Adrian placed the bag on the counter and approached the table. "And what is it?" Maya took the drawing from under the book, her eyes shining with anticipation and nervousness. "I made this for you," she said, holding out the paper, "because you are very special to us." Adrian took the drawing and slowly unfolded it. When he saw what was there, he felt the world stop for a second. 2 figures holding hands, one small and blonde, the other tall with dark hair, and at the top, in childish but neat letters, "My best friend." He was silent for a long moment, just staring at the paper. Rachel watched his expression change. She saw the exact moment the emotion hit him. "Maya," he finally said, his voice hoarse. It's you and me." Maya explained quickly, as if afraid he hadn't understood, "Holding hands, because you always hold my hand when I need it, and you're my best friend because you showed up when I needed you most." Adrian felt his eyes fill with tears. He held the drawing very carefully, as if it were made of the most delicate material in the world. "It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received in my life," he said, and there was absolute truth in his voice. Maya smiled, relieved and happy. "You really like it? I love it more than anything." Adrian knelt to her level. "Thank you, Maya, from the bottom of my heart." And then something unexpected happened. Maya, in a burst of pure emotion, stretched out her arms and hugged Adrian tightly. He returned the hug immediately, feeling his heart overflow with a happiness he didn't know existed. "You're my best friend too," he whispered in her ear. Rachel watched the scene with tears in her eyes, realizing she was witnessing something much bigger than a simple gift. It was a moment of pure love, of true connection, of a family being formed. When they broke the hug, Adrian was still holding the drawing with extreme care. "I will keep this forever," he promised. "Forever and ever?" Maya asked. "Forever and ever." While Rachel prepared dinner and Maya organized her colored pencils, Adrian stayed in the living room, still looking at the drawing. For the first time in years, he felt truly part of something bigger than himself. Later that night, after Maya had gone to bed, Rachel and Adrian sat in the living room talking quietly. The light was low, creating an intimate and cozy atmosphere. The drawing was propped up on the coffee table, where Adrian could look at it. "She loves you very much," Rachel said softly, noticing how Adrian couldn't stop looking at the drawing. "And I love her too," Adrian replied without hesitation. "You two have completely changed my life." Rachel settled more comfortably on the sofa, sensing that Adrian wanted to talk about something deeper. "How have we changed your life?" Adrian was quiet for a moment, as if organizing thoughts he had long kept guarded. "Before I met you, I was living on autopilot," he began, looking at his own hands. "I'd wake up, work, come home, sleep, repeat it all the next day. I had money, I had success, but I didn't have a life." Rachel watched him attentively, realizing he rarely spoke about himself in that way. Why was it like that? Adrian sighed deeply. "I lost my parents very young. I was 17 when they died in a car accident," he said, his voice growing quieter. "From one moment to the next, I was alone in the world with a small inheritance and a lot of anger." Rachel's heart ached. "I'm so sorry, Adrian. I channeled all that anger into work and my studies," he continued. "It was easier than dealing with the pain. I studied business, started investing, built a company. In 10 years, I had more money than I knew what to do with. But you didn't have a family," Rachel completed softly. "Exactly." Adrian looked at her. "I got rich, but I forgot what it's like to have a family. I forgot what it's like to care about someone other than myself. I forgot how to love," and now Adrian smiled, a genuine and warm smile. "Now I remember. Maya taught me again what unconditional love is. You taught me what it is to care for someone, to share responsibilities, to be part of something bigger." Rachel felt tears forming in her eyes. "Adrian, you're already part of our family," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "You're not alone anymore." The words hit Adrian like a gentle punch to the chest. Family. He was part of a family again. "You are part of mine too," he said, his voice choked. "In fact, you are my family now. The only one I have." Rachel moved closer on the sofa and, in a spontaneous gesture, took his hand. "And we always will be." They sat like that for a few minutes in comfortable silence as processing everything that had been said. Adrian looked alternately at Rachel and at Maya's drawing, hardly believing how his life had changed. "You know what I'm going to do," he said finally, standing up. "What?" Adrian went to a bookshelf and took out a leather portfolio where he kept important documents. He opened it carefully and placed Maya's drawing inside, right on the first page. "I'm going to keep it here, with the most important things in my life," he explained. "Like a treasure." Rachel smiled, touched by the delicate gesture. "She'll be so happy to know that. And I will look at this whenever I need to remember what really matters." Adrian closed the portfolio carefully. "Family, love, people who care about each other." "What future do you imagine for us?" Rachel asked softly. Adrian returned to the sofa and sat closer to her. "A future where Maya walks normally again, where you two never have to worry about money or anything else again, where we are a real family." "And the treatment?" "Sandra said we're entering the final stages of rehabilitation," Adrian replied. "A few more weeks and Maya should be walking on her own. After that, it will just be strengthening and follow-ups." Rachel nodded, barely believing they had come so far. "Sometimes I pinch myself to make sure this isn't all a dream." "It's not a dream," Adrian held her hand tighter. "It's our new reality, our family, our life." When they said goodbye that night, they both knew that something had definitively changed between them. They were no longer just acquaintances united by a cause. They were family, and Maya's drawing, kept like a treasure in Adrian's portfolio, was the concrete proof that love had found a way to blossom in the hearts of three people who needed it most. The final stages of rehabilitation were approaching, but for all of them, what truly mattered had already been healed, the ability to love and be loved. 6 months. 6 months had passed since that meeting in the park, since the first wish whispered at the fountain. 6 months of sessions, tears, small victories, falls, and new beginnings. And now, on that sunny Tuesday morning, Maya stood at the entrance of the clinic, looking down the long hallway in front of her. Without the wheelchair, Sandra was beside her, smiling with pride. Rachel and Adrian watched from a few feet away, their hearts racing. The entire clinic staff had gathered discreetly, nurses, other physical therapists, even Dr. Harrison had come down to witness this moment. "Ready, warrior?" Sandra asked softly. Maya took a deep breath, her hands loose at her sides. She was wearing new sneakers that Adrian had bought especially for the occasion, white with pink details, which she had carefully chosen at the store. "Ready?" she said, her voice firm but emotional. And then she began to walk. They were not hesitant or supported steps. They were her own steps, short but steady, one after the other. Maya kept her gaze fixed on the end of the hallway, focused, but a small smile played at the corner of her mouth. Step, step, step. Rachel covered her mouth with her hands, the tears beginning to fall. Adrian felt his chest tighten with emotion, hardly believing what he was seeing. The girl he had met in a wheelchair, making an impossible wish at a fountain, was now walking on her own. "Come on, Maya," Sandra encouraged quietly. "You're doing perfectly." Maya reached the middle of the hallway and paused for a moment, not out of tiredness, but to look back and see the distance she had covered. When she saw all those people watching her with huge smiles, her own smile widened. "I'm really walking," she said, her voice echoing down the hall. "You are," Rachel shouted back, no longer able to contain her emotion. Maya turned and continued walking to the end of the hallway. When she got there, she turned again to face the entire distance back. This time, she walked a little faster, more confidently. When she arrived back at the starting point, the entire team burst into applause. It wasn't restrained or professional applause. It was the applause of people who had witnessed a miracle, who had been part of an extraordinary journey of overcoming. Maya stopped amidst the applause, looking around at all the people who had helped her over the months. Her smile was radiant, confident, the smile of someone who had conquered the impossible. "Thank you," she shouted to everyone, clapping as well. Sandra approached and hugged her. "Maya, you are officially an independent walker," she announced. "Congratulations, sweetie." Rachel ran over, or tried to run while crying, and hugged her daughter tightly. "I knew you could do it," she sobbed. "I always knew you could do it." Adrian approached more slowly, still processing everything he had witnessed. When he got close, Maya held out her arms to him. "Adrian, did you see? I walked the whole hallway." "And I sure did," he said, his voice choked, hugging her. "I'm so proud of you, I don't even know how to express it." Dr. Harrison approached the group, smiling. "Maya, technically you still need a few strengthening sessions," he said. "But for all intents and purposes, your main treatment is complete. You can walk again." Maya nodded, serious for a moment. "Am I still going to come here?" "Twice a week, for 2 more months," Sandra explained. "Just to make sure your muscles get really strong and to prevent any future problems. But you can live a completely normal life now." Normal. Maya repeated the word as if it were magic. A normal life. When they left the clinic that day, for the first time in months, there was no wheelchair. Maya walked to the car, slowly but steadily, stopping now and then to comment on how strange and wonderful it was to see the world from her usual height again. "Things look different when you walk," she observed, getting into the back seat of the car. "Like it's a new world." "It is a new world," Adrian agreed, adjusting the rearview mirror to see her. "For all of us." On the way home, Maya couldn't stop planning. "Tomorrow I want to walk to school," she announced, "without anyone driving me. I want to leave the house, walk there and arrive at my classroom walking." Rachel turned to look at her. "Are you sure?" "It's a bit far, my love." "I'm sure," Maya said, determined. "I want everyone to see that I did it. And I want to carry my own backpack like the other kids." Adrian smiled, watching her in the rearview mirror. The girl was planning to reclaim her life one step at a time. "And on the weekend," Maya continued, "I want to go to the park where we met. I want to run from one side to the other, like I used to." "We'll do that," Adrian promised. "We'll do everything you want." A week later, the new routine was established. Maya woke up early, had breakfast with Rachel and Adrian, who was now practically living with them, and walked to school with her pink backpack on. In the afternoon, she would walk back, always with stories about how impressed her classmates were with her recovery. Adrian had completely reorganized his professional life. He worked from home most days, only leaving for essential meetings. He had discovered that he enjoyed helping Maya with her homework much more than being stuck in an office. "Adrian, can you help me with math?" Maya asked one Thursday afternoon, sitting at the kitchen table with her books spread out. Of course, Adrian sat next to her, pulling her notebook closer. "What part are you not understanding?" "The division problems." Maya made a face. "They're so hard." Adrian laughed, remembering when he was her age and thought division was the end of the world. "I'll teach you a trick," he said, picking up a pencil. "Let's imagine you have 12 candies and you want to share them equally with 3 friends." Rachel watched them from the sink, where she was washing the lunch dishes. Scenes like this were repeating every day now. Adrian helping Maya with her homework, playing with her in the building's small yard, planning her future. "Maya, what do you want to be when you grow up?" he had asked a few days earlier. "A physical therapist," she had answered without hesitation. "Like Sandra, I want to help other kids walk again." Adrian and Rachel had looked at each other, touched by the maturity of her answer. "Then we'll start thinking about a good school for you," Adrian said. "A school where you can study hard and prepare for that." "An expensive school?" Maya asked, worried. "A good school," Adrian corrected. "Don't worry about money. Your future is the most important thing." That night, after Maya went to bed, Adrian and Rachel stayed in the living room talking about future plans. It was something they did almost every night now, planning Maya's education, thinking about changes to the apartment. imagining what their lives would be like in the coming years. "Have you ever thought about going back to school?" Adrian asked Rachel. "To study what?" "Whatever you always wanted to study but couldn't because of circumstances." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "I always wanted to study psychology," she admitted. "I wanted to help other mothers who go through what I went through." "Then let's make it happen," Adrian said simply. "Maya is old enough to be alone for a few hours. I can help with her and you can study." Rachel looked at him, surprised. "Adrian, you already do so much for us. It's not about doing things for you." He interrupted her softly. "It's about building our life together, our family." The word family still had a special impact every time it was spoken between them. It had become real in a way none of the three had planned, but it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Maya, come have dinner," Rachel called a few days later. Maya came running from the living room, where she was watching cartoons, and sat at the table. Adrian was serving the pasta he had prepared. He had discovered he was a decent cook in recent weeks. Smells good," Maya commented, picking up her fork. "Special recipe from Chef Adrian," he joked, serving Rachel as well. As they ate, they talked about their day. Maya told stories about school, Rachel talked about work, and Adrian commented on his projects. It was a simple, ordinary routine, but it brought a deep happiness to all three of them. "You know what I realized today?" Maya said in the middle of dinner. "What?" Rachel asked. "That it's been a long time since I've thought about the wheelchair." Maya said naturally. "This morning I was going to get something from the top of the cabinet, and I just reached up to get it without thinking. Before I would have been sad because I couldn't reach it." Adrian and Rachel smiled, touched by the observation. "That means walking has become natural again," Adrian commented. "Yeah," Maya nodded. "It's like I never stopped walking. It was just a rest time for my legs." After dinner, while Maya brushed her teeth, Adrian helped Rachel with the dishes. It was another ritual they had developed. She washed, he dried, and they talked about everything and nothing. "Rachel," Adrian said, drying a plate, "there's something I want to talk to you both about." "What is it?" "I want to make this official," he said, turning to face her. "I want to adopt Maya legally, and I want us to be a real family." Rachel stopped scrubbing the glass in her hand, surprised. "Adrian, I know it's a lot to process," he continued quickly, "but these past months have shown me that you are the family I've always wanted, and I want to be the father Maya deserves to have." "You already are," Rachel said softly. "You're already her father in every way that matters." "So let's make it official." Rachel looked him in the eyes, seeing absolute sincerity there. "Let's talk to Maya," she said finally. "See what she thinks of the idea." When Maya came back from the bathroom, in her pajamas with her hair in a loose ponytail, she found the two adults in the living room with serious expressions. "Did something happen?" she asked, worried. "Sit here, sweetie," Rachel said, patting the sofa between her and Adrian. "We have something important to talk about." Maya sat down, looking from one to the other. "Adrian has a proposal to make," Rachel began. Adrian took a deep breath. "Maya, these months taking care of you and your mom have been the happiest of my life," he said, choosing his words carefully. "You two have become my family, and I'd like to know if you would accept me as your father." Officially, Maya stared at him for a long moment, processing what she had heard. "You want to be my dad?" "I do," Adrian said simply. "If you want me to be." Maya looked at Rachel, then back at Adrian. Her blue eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy. "I've always wanted a dad," she said softly. "And there's no one in the world I'd rather have as my dad than you." Adrian felt his chest burst with happiness. He opened his arms and Maya threw herself into them, crying with emotion. "I promise I will always be by your side," he said, his voice choked. "Forever." Rachel came closer and hugged them both. "And we'll never let you be alone again," she said, completing the promise. Maya pulled away from the hug slightly and looked at Adrian with that radiant smile he had grown to love so much. "You're my best friend," she whispered, repeating the words she had written on the drawing months ago. "And you're my daughter," Adrian whispered back. "My brave, smart, and wonderful daughter." When they went to sleep that night, they all knew their lives had found the right path. Maya had started walking again, but more than that, they had all learned to live again. The challenges they would face in the future would be the normal challenges of any family. School problems, decisions about the future, small arguments and big reconciliations, but they were challenges they would face together. At the simple kitchen table, between smiles and conversations about the day, they had found something worth more than any wealth, a real home, built on love, presence, and the promise that they would always be there for each other. The wish whispered at the fountain had come true in a much bigger way than Maya could have ever imagined. She hadn't just started walking again. She had gained a complete family.